Welcome back to The Long Way Home. I'm your host, Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today let's talk about the internet. so, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about online, how the internet works, and just some things, some observations that I've had over the years, and especially recently, because I've had this YouTube channel for a few years, this Patreon for a couple of years, if you're listening on Patreon. If you are, shout out, thank you. I appreciate you if you're over there. But Patreon, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I've been working on that for a few years, and up until the past couple of months, I had this idea that I was gonna, be able to grow an online presence and get some followers online and make some money. The kind of stuff that you see the Mr. Beasts of the world. I was never gonna be that big, but I thought, maybe I could make a living, scratch by, pay some of the bills doing stuff online. And it's only been the past couple of months that I've kind of really started to dig in and look at it from a different standpoint. And so I just kind of wanted to take this episode to talk a little bit about the internet in the past, what it was like growing up in the '90s with the coming of the internet, I guess you could say, and then what I've seen over the past 30 years as far as where the internet was and where it is now, and then kind of where I think things are going, because I don't know that I have a much different view than other people, although I might. I'm not, we'll get into that. But we'll start with the 90s. I was a kid, and when the internet kind of started becoming a popular thing, and to the point of like, we had to get permission slips signed to use the internet in school. And my mom refused to sign the permission slip. I was told basically in no uncertain terms that I was going to learn the Dewey Decimal System, and I didn't need the internet to research things, because that was what the internet was being used for at the time. And this is in middle school, was for researching projects for different classes. And for those of you who may be under 30 years old and have never been to a library, even if you have, I don't even know if they have. Do people use catalogs at the library anymore? I'm not really sure. The Dewey Decimal System is a cataloging system with books. I had to learn how to go through and figure out exactly what shelf and what section the book that I needed was in, and then I had to use that book to actually research and do all the stuff that I needed for different various projects in school. While my friends would go to the World Wide Web and start going to like encyclopedia.com and researching on there. And this was back before the internet was like crazy busy with ads. There were ads, but it wasn't anywhere near what it is today. So, that was my experience early on with the internet. And, some of that came from a religious sense. My mom was a little more religious than she let on at times, and was afraid. She thought that the internet was kind of the Antichrist. I'll put it that way. It didn't help matters any that my father had wound up meeting a woman in a chat room and having an affair. He would move out to California and be with that woman for a while before moving on to another woman that I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he met her online, but it's one of those deals that the internet in my household was viewed as a bad thing, right? I hated that because I was all for like, hey, make my life a little bit easier. The internet sounds like a pretty cool thing, we would see television shows and commercials, and they always had the same tagline: AOL keyword, and then enter the keyword here, whatever it happened to be, the show or topic or whatever. And AOL was America Online, which another older reference. AOL, I think, is still around. I'm not 100% sure. Not in the same way it was. The internet, the early days of the internet, you had discs from AOL, which were everywhere, given out like candy, where you could use those discs for a certain number of hours online every month. And that was, back with the dial-up modems and all that kind of stuff. So you couldn't be on the phone and the internet at the same time. And it was a whole different world. But when I got a little bit older and I kind of watched as it started to evolve, but I wasn't really as involved in it because of my upbringing, because the internet hadn't really been a big thing in my childhood, even as I had watched it, almost as a silent observer, seeing how things were going and how things were moving along. And so when websites like YouTube came along, I didn't really know what to do with it. I remember early YouTube watching videos from time to time, but I didn't really. I don't even know. I might have had an account under an old Yahoo email or something, but I didn't do much with YouTube. I didn't think about YouTube as anything other than, oh, look, this platform where you can watch videos, and I didn't really care about it. And, some of that also corresponded with the fact that in 2008, I went to basic training. And so my time in the military was focused on military stuff, and I didn't really keep up with pop culture and what was going on in the world outside of the army. And the army is kind of old school, so the army wasn't really conducive to learning about what was going on and these newfangled things that were happening. I kind of missed the age of YouTube blooming into what it has, where it became in the early 2010s. I missed things like Vine. I never really. I remember kind of hearing about Vine, but I didn't really get on board with it. And I didn't even really know what it was. If that tells you anything. Instagram, when it came along, I didn't have it. I didn't really know. I knew Instagram was like for photography, but I didn't really know much outside of that. My time on the web was really limited to. I had a MySpace page at one point as a teenager, but I didn't do much with it. And then I got my Facebook page in like 2011, 2012, something like that. So that was the first time I really started kind of getting into social media in general. And then in 2013, I started to kind of pick up on YouTube. And it was watching stuff. I wasn't creating anything. I didn't really realize what the potential was of YouTube. I didn't have the ability really. I didn't have a smartphone that would really do well with videos, so I didn't really ever think about making videos or anything like that. But I did use it to learn, and I spent a lot of time watching debates and stuff like that. I was really interested in like the intellectual side of the debate of Christianity versus atheism and that kind of stuff. So I spent a lot of time researching that, watching debates, watching speeches and that kind of stuff, and so I was really getting into it from that angle. And then in 2014, 2015, something like that, I kind of made my first kind of attempt at something YouTube wise. And that was mostly just walking around cemeteries and taking video, boring, boring video of me walking around videos, terrible audio quality, um, or walking around cemeteries and they're just terrible stuff. Early internet kind of stuff, the cringeworthy thing that people look back on now. Somebody like me who look back from 10 years ago and say, "Jesus, I was really cringy, to say the least." So there was that, and really until I want to say 2016, 2017. Even in that time frame, the internet wasn't that big a thing for me. I guess I missed out on all of the big stuff. I missed out on the memes. I missed out on the explosion of different platforms. You know, I think about like Etsy and that kind of stuff, and I'll get into more into that in a minute. But like, I missed out on these platforms like really blowing up and becoming big, and it's almost like I was an outsider. I was watching the whole thing unfold, but without really paying close attention to it. And I guess where I started to really get into it was probably in 2020, where most other people probably found the internet. I know a lot of people found it before then, but like 2020 during lockdown was a whole different thing for me because it was the first time I joined an online community. I was playing Elder Scrolls Online, and I was looking for some people to play with, and I found this community that I got involved with, and really was having a good time throughout the year. And I got kind of the content creation itch, and I wanted to get back into making something, but I wanted to be a little bit more serious about it. And at first, I thought, well, I'll make gaming stuff. That's a terrible idea. Don't ever do gaming stuff on anywhere online. There's just too much of it as it is. But I thought about that first, and then in 2021, I got a job offer with the company, got a big pay increase, and I had been into photography for years, and I was like, I'm gonna try to make like a photography YouTube channel because I had been watching other people trying to learn about photography, and so many of the people I was watching, they've been doing it for so long, and their videos with advice and stuff like that felt so out of touch with, at least for me, as a beginner. Like I'm like, how do I do all these beginner level things? You're doing this stuff that you've been doing for years, and a lot of these photographers that I was watching were like in beautiful places in Europe and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm in Ohio. I've got corn. I don't know what I'm going to take pictures of. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, or really get into my YouTube channel. I'm going to focus on photography. I'm going to teach people about photography. That lasted all of like 2 months because I was frustrated with the growth. And I was like, okay, how do I grow a YouTube channel? And I got into the YouTube growth niche, learning, following some different channels that were teaching, supposed to be teaching, but it was more kind of charlatans, the kind of people that are like, oh, this is how you can blow up your YouTube channel from 0 to 500,000 people in 1 month, like stuff that's just unrealistic. And over the years of doing YouTube and trying to grow an online presence, something that has really stuck out to me is the sheer volume of people trying to do the exact same thing. And when I say volume, everybody knows it. Like the internet is just packed full of just everything. Everybody's online. Everybody's trying to have their own YouTube channel, their own whatever. And everything's oversaturated. And so, I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? How do I break through in this? I'm waving my hands here. I'm doing everything I can. Mind you, I was jumping around from topic to topic, from thing to thing, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I was trying to find myself online. I was trying to find my voice, and I was like, what do I do? How do I do this? And it struck me recently as I was thinking about it that really most of it's luck. And to to say that to some online communities would be blasphemy, because there's a lot of people out there that are like, no, if you're skilled enough and if you make quality content, you're going to make it big online. And that's just not the case. Realistically, and this really goes into the past couple of years especially. I started writing. I'm an author. If you don't know, if this is your first time here, welcome. First of all, I'm an author. I've got 3 books out now. My most recent one released in April, and over the past year and a half, I have sold maybe 9 or 10 copies of my books in total, and most of those were to friends, family, people that know me. 1 or 2 of them were to people that I'm not sure how they found me or why they decided to buy it, but 1 or 2 of those are for complete strangers. And that is a year and a half, or that is a little over a year of trying to sell myself online, trying to get my name out there, trying to share my stories. In 2024 or 2023, throughout the summer, I was writing short horror stories and sharing those consistently on my channel, and just trying to find anything to get my voice out there. I've tried Twitch streaming, I've tried YouTube, I've tried TikTok, I've tried Instagram, I've tried, a million different ways. And, maybe focusing in on one might have really pushed it, but realistically, you can't do that. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your content is or what you have to offer, you're at the mercy of an algorithm. And people often use the term algorithm in without understanding what exactly an algorithm is. They make it sound like it's some scary thing in the back end, maliciously making decisions. An algorithm is just a set of code, and it's just there to guide. It has a purpose, and in most cases, for most platforms, the purpose is keep people on the platform. And the reason for that is because that's how you make money. You sell ads, and your ads are more worth more when you have more traffic, right? So that's what the algorithm's there for. It's not trying to hurt anybody. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. Well, when you're in a situation where the majority of the stuff on there, you've got a shit ton, a metric shit ton of content, and you have people out watching, but those people most of them are mindlessly watching. You're not going anywhere, no matter how good your content is. If you get lucky enough to go viral, if you get lucky to be a Mr. Beast or a PewDiePie or a Jacksepticeye or whoever, name your viral hit of the past 10 years. Yeah, you got lucky, and if you were really good, you capitalized on that luck like Mr. Beast. But at the end of the day, it's still getting lucky. And I was like, okay, well, I can sit here and I can play with this luck forever, or I can do something about it and go out there and just make my own luck in a way. For me, what I have started to focus on is in person stuff. My wife and I think I mentioned this in the prior podcast. My wife and I have started a business. She makes candles and wax melts and stuff like that. And we go to shows, and I sell my books and photography, and she sells her candles and wax melts, and we just have a good old time. And I've sold more books as of this recording. We've had 2 shows that we have been to, and I've sold more books in those between those 2 shows. And I want to specify these 2 shows weren't real events even. They were kind of just like pop-up events in a downtown that was kinda had a few people there. We might have had 40 or 50 people stop by over the course of a 7-hour day, both times. And I've sold more books at those 2 events than I sold in the prior year online. And to me, that's like, okay, this is 2 days, 14 hours that I have put into this. And I've sold more books than I sold in I can't even count the number of hours online between YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Like, I've tried all of these outlets. None of them it's like standing in the town square and trying to get attention, but there's a screen in your way, and you only get that screen up every once in a while if you're lucky enough, and you better hope people are looking your way when it goes up. And then when they're looking your way, you better hope that you have your pants up and you're not in the middle of doing something. It's apologies for the graphic imagery, but you get the point. Like, that's the gist of the internet. And I had to question, like, especially with the fact that AI, where it's at today and where AI is going, it's not looking great for making a living doing anything online. The best businesses out there are what's called omnichannel. They're online and offline. They have a physical presence out in the real world, and then they have an online presence for those who want to find them online. There are so many businesses over the past few years that have started online only. And I said I was come back to the Etsy thing. Etsy was one of those that started a few years ago and was really popular and was really great for finding unique art and crafts and that kind of stuff from actual people that were making them. And then those people could make money and you could get a kind of cool little art piece or craft. But what it's become is it's had this massive takeover between people using AI for their marketing because they don't know how to market, but AI does, and people selling products that they aren't making off of sites like Temu, where they're buying cheap jewelry and reselling it as handcrafted jewelry for a 5,000% markup. And so you're having to fight against that. You're having to fight against on YouTube if you're trying to make a YouTube channels that are scripting everything with AI, having AI plan out the entire video from the title to the thumbnail to everything in between. Even to the point where maybe the video itself, the actual stuff you're watching, is AI generated. It's getting insane, and it's the same way with like books, for instance. People can churn out books on a quick basis by having AI write the whole thing. AI comes up with the title and the cover and the book, and it's the sheer volume is now increasing online. And these are people that are trying to get rich quick, that are using it as a scheme, because that's been a thing since the beginning of time. There's always been these get rich quick people, these people that are like, oh, if you wanna make $1 million, well, I'll tell you how. All you have to do is buy my course. And those those people now are online, and we're seeing it get to the lottery crowd, as I like to call them. The lottery was invented, and it takes advantage of poor people who want to get out of the situation they're in, don't know how because they're being held down by a system that is built to work against them, and so they play the lottery. Well, YouTube and social media in general and the internet in general is kind of the same thing, except that you don't have to buy a lottery ticket. Instead, you've got to start a business. And most people have no clue how to start or run a business. And least of all, especially not online, because online you're competing. I know I've mentioned this at some point. I don't remember which. It might have been when I was talking about when life throws you a lemon episode. But I had a buddy that said to me, "Why don't you sell your books on, or why don't you sell your candles and stuff on Amazon?" And I was like, "Well, because I have to compete with all of these other people on there. Because having my own website, his point was, well, you've got a website, but you're hidden in the traffic. You're hidden in the search traffic." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's true even if I'm on Amazon or Etsy or Shopify or any of these other sites. I'm hidden behind thousands of others. All of my books are on Amazon, and they are buried so deep in the bottom of Amazon that you have to have a backhoe to find them and dig them out. You can find them if you search, GPS signal lost by Josh Hawk. It'll show up. You'll be able to find it. But if you don't know that it's there, the chances of you ever seeing it are slim to none, unless, and this is key for every website, unless you pay for advertising. And that's kind of where the internet's going right now, is websites are slowing down the native views. And Facebook has been notorious about this lately, because I've got a Facebook page as an author, and my wife has been following me for a long time, and she sees some of my posts every once in a while. She interacts with every post she sees. She will directly search me out, but she doesn't get shown all of my posts. And nobody else I talk to gets shown my posts on a regular basis. Not only that, Facebook has gone to the system of showing you what they think you should see, as opposed to, you can't even go to the most recent anymore. There's no most recent tab. YouTube is the same way. If you want to see videos from the channels you subscribe to on YouTube, you actually have to go to a specific tab called subscribed, and you have to go check that out to see the channels that you're subscribed to. Because as far as they're concerned, as far as most of these websites are concerned, what you want to see is what they show you. And that's why I will say now, and I will say this forever, at least until I've run out of breath or until the internet goes away. The internet, the whole system's rigged. You aren't shown the best of the best. You aren't being shown the stuff that is quality, good content. You're being shown whatever they decide you're going to be shown. The things that go viral, the things that become popular, the things that are out there are being picked by these different companies to become the popular thing. That's just the way it is. Things that become popular are not necessarily the best things out there. You think about it in terms of movies and books. Books are a perfect example of this, because books don't become popular, at least not in the mainstream, because they're good. They become popular because the publisher decides to push them. decides to show them everywhere. And when something is everywhere, all of a sudden that must mean it's good, right? Because everybody's talking about this. It must be something fantastic. I look back over the past 30 years at the things, the books and movies that have blown up, right? Seemingly, some of them seemingly out of nowhere. And you look at things like the Harry Potter series, which it is an okay series. I like the Harry Potter series, right? Of books and movies, but they aren't like the greatest works of literature ever. Lord of the Rings is the same way. The books of Lord of the Rings are okay, they're good books, but they're boring as hell in some points, and most modern audiences would not listen to them or read them because they're just too detailed. There's too much going on. And then you look at movies and book series like Twilight. Twilight's a big one. Twilight is absolutely stupid. It is far from a literary masterpiece, but it blew up. Why did it blow up? The we had the teen dystopia series thing going on for a long time with series like The Hunger Games and Divergent and those kind of things. These series that on their own merit aren't terrible works. They aren't like the worst thing ever written, but they're also not like the best thing ever written. They're middle of the road, but they seem much bigger because their popularity was blown up by a studio, by a publishing house that decided we're going to push it everywhere. And it's become even easier now for companies because companies now can get influencers to peddle their wares and talk about their stuff. And all you need to do is put a little disclaimer in the video saying that this is a paid sponsor segment, a disclaimer that nobody pays attention to. And they think that, oh, well, this major YouTuber is talking about this thing. It must be an awesome thing. But caveat that with the fact that a lot of that trust is starting to erode. Trust in influencers is starting to erode. People don't necessarily believe that what the influencer is peddling is something quality anymore because they're so used to everybody sells out. You got to pay the bills. So, obviously you took this as a paycheck. You probably don't even believe in it. And people are even starting to tune out ads. Honestly, I can't even watch YouTube hardly at all anymore because I get a pre-roll ad, I get a mid-roll ad, I get a post-roll ad. In between there, sometimes a couple of pre-roll ad or mid-roll ads, but also at least one, sometimes two sponsored segments. And it's all in the name of, well, I have to pay the bills. I got to pay for crew. I've got this entire crew I have to sustain. Why? What the hell are you doing? People are running television companies now. Television style companies on YouTube. You look at a channel like Watcher. Watcher is a channel that I have loved. I loved since it came on the air. And even before that, I used to watch the Ghost Files, which was the origins of Watcher, and I loved the content they had. And recently, they just kind of blew it all up because they said, "Well, we're not doing YouTube anymore. We're going to be putting all of our stuff on Watcher on the Watcher website." And real quick, they found out they needed to backtrack on that because people were pissed. They lost hundreds of thousands, like thousands of subscribers. It was insane because they were just like, "Man, we need more money." And there was an okay way they could have done that, but they dropped the ball. They screwed it up. And that's really where it's at now online is that people are starting to realize that these YouTubers, these content creators, they become money hungry. It becomes greed at some point because realistically, you don't need a production crew for every channel. You just don't. You don't need to have an editor and a script writer and all of these different people, these scene planners. Like, you don't need to have all of this stuff to run a YouTube channel. The whole idea of YouTube to begin with was broadcast yourself. Get yourself in a raw format where it's just you and the camera and maybe some of your friends having fun goofing off. That's what YouTube was to begin with. And where it is today and where it's going, it's not going to be the same in 5 years. It's not going to be... I see a potential online in the next 5 years with the internet and with AI that most people aren't even going to be paying attention to most of the stuff going on online. There will still be the viral videos, there will still be the news being shared, but realistically, everything's swinging back. The pendulum's going the other way. We blew up cable to get streaming networks, or streaming platforms. Now we have so many streaming platforms that you have to get a bundle of streaming platforms to watch the shows you want to watch. You're back to cable. Or like I stream TV on I use Sling, and not sponsored, but I've used Sling for a few months now because I wanted to watch the news, and that's the only thing that I really care about seeing live. And the way that I could do that was going through a platform like that. And realistically, we're going to be getting to a point where all of this is going back. We're going to have to go back to where things were 15, 20 years ago to kind of hit that medium. But even then, you can't trust most of what you see online. You can't trust that what you hear, what you see is human generated, is man made or woman made, I guess, human made. But you don't know what the origin of it is. And if you can't trust that, these online communities, these places that sprung up in the past, you still have some online communities, but they're shrinking in as far as influence. As the influencers that the communities grew up around are disappearing or making mistakes or leaving the platforms or whatever, some of those communities grew up around topics, and some of those topics, people come and go within those things, and it's all online, but they're smaller and shrinking. And I honestly think that in-person stuff is going to be, we're going to go back to that in a lot of ways over the next 5 or 10 years. The internet's not going anywhere. It's not going to get any smaller. It's not going to disappear. It's still going to be there. But I think that a lot of people are going to reassess the way that they use the internet, especially after 2020 and everything that happened with COVID and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. I think people have been reevaluating things for the last couple of years and trying to find that balance and that medium. And I think we get back to that over the next 5 to 10 years. Just because you can trust stuff more in person than you can online. And you have a better shot in person than you do online. Me taking a business and going in person in front of people, it costs more at the beginning, but it's better in the long run because people walking up to me at an event, they see me, we make eye contact, we talk, we make that human connection that you can't make online, and that's how you grow a business, and that's how you know what your customers want, you know what you need to do. I can talk to somebody who picks up, I've had people that pick up GPS signal loss, and they'll read the back of it, and they'll look through it, and they'll see that, oh, this looks like a pretty good book, and I want to pick it up. I want to buy it. I want to take it home and read it. And the same thing with Legends and Tales. It's these in-person things that you can't get online, that it's not possible to get online. And I think that that's going to be kind of the way things are swinging. And you can see it not directly yet with Gen Z, but I think Gen Z is going to be, and Gen Alpha really, is going to kind of be the first generation that's going to take a better approach to this hybrid. People don't give them credit. People say Gen Z, Gen Alpha are just the lost generations and they're all online all the time. And I call bullshit on that, because while they are online, they've grown up online. I think a lot of them want that in-person human connection. And as a millennial considered, I hate the generation terms, but I go with them because that's what people recognize. But as a millennial myself, I've felt this weird kind of, I had the pre-internet in the 90s relationships with friends, and where you called your friend's house and their mom might pick up the phone and have to tell them to come to the phone, or they might not be home and you didn't know where they were at or when they were going to be there. So I had that experience, and then I had the full online experience with everybody online. And now I'm kind of seeing it swing back the other way. And these younger generations, Alpha and Gen Z, are seeing they've grown up online. They've grown up in these online spaces, with nothing but online communities, feeling this need and this desire to have these in-person relationships. And I think things are going to start twisting back towards that direction. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. At a minimum, we're 35 minutes into this podcast. My original goal was to go 10, 15 minutes at most. So longer podcasts are going to be these type of in-depth deep dives. And I really I like digging into my past in regards to these kind of things, and also what I think is going to happen in the future based off of that, because that's my perspective, and sharing my perspective, even if, like I said, nobody's going to hear this probably. There might be one or two of you out there. If you're still listening now, if you're on YouTube or Patreon, either one, you can comment down below and let me know you're still listening at 35 minutes, almost 36. Congrats. Hats off to you if you're still here at this point. But realistically, because of how the internet works, because of how attention spans work, I know that I'm recording this mostly for myself, and probably nobody will ever hear it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'll die. I mean, I know I'll die someday, but like when I die, somebody might be going back through my old stuff and be like, "Oh wow, okay, that's what he had. That's what he thought about that." I don't know. Who knows how this stuff's going to go? But I'm going to share my opinion on these things. I'm going to talk about this stuff, and I'm going to dig into this stuff because it's stuff that really matters to me and stuff that I want to talk about. So I do want to thank you all for listening. That's about I'm going to call it an end. We're way over what we should be. I'll say that. But I do have other episodes of this podcast, and I've got other ones I'm planning, other things that I'm working on, including things about relationship and raising kids and military service. I've got a shit ton of stories from my time in the military and that kind of stuff. So, stay tuned for all that. If you like this, if you're on Patreon, thank you again for being a patron. If you are on YouTube, hey, subscribe. Don't know what good it'll do, but hell, you made it 37 minutes into a podcast. Come on, subscribe, all right? But thank you all for listening. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.